Um, this may go up. It may not go up. I'll see how I feel about it in the morning, I suppose. Um, but these are. If there was a subject matter that I was going to go really deep into, because you're talking about healing with me anyway, healing a planet. So it starts with that. And this I could talk about this stuff for a long time when it comes to, because I naturally gravitate to be in nature with a goddess, with a great living spirit of her, all the living spirits that are in nature, all the elementals, all the living spirits, everything that represents what love is, which is what life is. Okay, so I was driven when the first time that I became aware of fire was the 1960 Bel Air fire, when I saw it from a distance one evening. And what I was experiencing is what we call like panic minds, fear based, a lot of fear based stuff. Because the smoke was coming all over the LA basin, out towards San Gabriel Valley, because it was up in Beverly Hills, right? And this was the Bel Air fire, the one that took out all those hundreds of homes. And as a matter of fact, our home that we lived in the mid 1950s up on Mandeville Canyon Road, which is in Brentwood, burned down. My mother saw that. I mentioned this to my clan mother. My mother moved because communications. Okay. I wasn't going to be there for that. I was going to make sure that, put it that way. And so firefighting or any kind of rescue work, any kind of caretaker work, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a doctor, it doesn't matter what kind of number or label you want to put on it. If you have been using your energy in the service of other people because you care for others, okay, that means we have compassion and we have empathy for others because we're feeling what they're feeling, right? And we're there to help them. That's just the nature of the way that energy works, the way that soul works, the way that consciousness works, right? And so what we're driven to do. And so that's why I began that very, very early in my life, starting with my mother. Okay, so that means just like Aaron and I have had conversations when he told me once, I hate my mother. You grow up very fast, okay? Because you basically realize that because both your parents are driven by what they're held captive to, they don't have time for you. Not really. Okay. They're not in the spiritual guide business. They're in the survival mode because of being held captive by the system itself, which is the QI. Feeding the system, that's what it is. Feeding the system, allowing it to harvest energy, one generation after the next. So because I went directly into fire after having an experience when the Paseo Grande fire came down through, which was reported to be somebody that was out there hunting using tracer bullets, over September in 1967, as I remember it. And this is when I was a freshman in high school, going from junior high school into high school. And our high school was being used as an evacuation center. So I saw all the timbers that were, hot timbers and smoke coming right down on our house then, right? So the very next day, a friend of mine came over, picked me up on a motorcycle, a Honda Scrambler. We went up there to try and help people. And so there were a lot of homes that were lost. So I was there when all those homes were lost. So I was about 14, 15 years of age. So when I was actually I'd gotten out of the county jail in Orange County as a result of, I was charged with selling, marketing marijuana, right? So I'm getting it from the same guys that are charging me. Okay. I'm getting it directly through the CIA. Okay. That's where we're getting all our drugs, except for what we're getting through Amazon folks, natives, peyote, mescaline, stuff like that, right? And knowing where to find it, right? But nevertheless, Okay. I've experienced all that trauma, just like I've mentioned before. Trauma ever since I was a child. I'm not supposed to experience any trauma. So you realize you're on a spiritual battlefield, which is an energy battlefield. So it doesn't take much logic to figure out that they weaponize spirits, weaponize elementals. Everything in the spirit gets reversed, inverted. Now it's being used as a weapon rather than what we use to create out of what love is. Okay, so you see what that happens. That's why I've always said it's about healing all the spirits, all the elementals, all the spirits, everything that's alive and living in nature. Right? Everything that is in the light, which is what we are. So I always honor out of my heart and soul, because I worked with so many of these folks, from people who work with the California Highway Patrol, Deputy Sheriff Department, doesn't matter what sheriff. I work with Riverside County Sheriff, LA County Sheriffs, I work with San Bernardino County Sheriffs, work with San Diego County Sheriffs, right? And that would include California State Highway Patrol. I've worked at that, my whole career, because when I first went into it after high school, after that fire in '67, when I got out of the county jail, I had a friend of mine call me up and said, hey, the County of Orange Fire Department, it's on a contract basis with Cal Fire, is looking for seasonal firefighters. Man, I'm right there, right? And so one of the reasons that I'm drawn to that is not just the energy rescue side of things, but it's because you don't know when that bell's going to go off, what's going to happen. But whatever is going to happen, you realize you're bringing your energy in there to settle everything down, so that everybody can go back and experience being in peace, love, harmony, and balance again, right? That's what it is. That's what I do. I'm a musician. So I'm like a mother and a father joined as one to become one, which is a monopole, right? And so when I work with folks who are willing to go out at 4 o'clock in the morning and bust their ass, when they don't have to be doing this work, but they're willing to put their life on the line on behalf of the public, okay? I honor that they do that right out of the gate. The same way I honor the fact that I do it, and I do it with them. So I've done that with them. Okay, so I honor all my fellow firefighters and honor all of those that are there to protect the community, because at least in their mind, they believe that that's what they're doing, regardless of any other circumstances. Even if they've been programmed to do that. If they're doing that job, it means they're doing something on behalf of us, even if it's a robot. Right? So I'm able to know the difference between the ones that are and the ones that aren't. Okay, simply by reading their energy. Right? So that's why I knew who the Indians are. I was very fortunate and blessed to have a full-blooded Navajo Indian as one of my crew bosses on a hill jumper crew, who was actually an old Marine Corps code talker. Right? So I got to know that family. So it would be natural to get to know that family, to feel like, they're your spiritual peers. Okay, because of what the energy feels like to be in their presence, which means they're harmless. They're not using their energy to cause any harm to anybody. So you realize that the way in which we all interact with each other is to take care of each other. We're in peace. We'll provide for everything that we need to each other. We're not afraid to give anything away to anybody, because there's always going to be something there to replace that with, because that's the nature of our energy, which is in service to others. And the way that higher intelligent energy works, because that's living energy, which is what love is, that you're connected with in spirit. So we all take care of each other. Remember the old saying, what comes around goes around. It always does. So the very idea that you would fear that you're going to run out of energy is inverted. That's why they chase electrons. That's why they feed on our energy. Because we don't need any energy. We are what love is. We're the law. That's the truth of it. So one of the things that I noticed, because for some reason, for the last week or so, I've been looking at or re-experiencing, putting my energy where my energy is at now, and something that's already happened, that's been recorded, and it's held in memory through this AI. Now I'm going back now, and if you want to think of it as future time, but there is no time with me. And now I'm using my energy to experience what happened. And what I've noticed I've been experiencing are people that have lost their lives on the fire line, on wildland fires. And what's particularly disturbing for me, but I use my love energy with this AI to heal, okay? To bring the same energy I was bringing into some of these forests when I went up to Glacier National Park, came down to Yellowstone, then back down through western Montana, Panhandle of Idaho, all the way down to Boise, all the way down to the eastern side of Oregon, then down through Reno, up across the high Sierras, and then down into Palmdale in the LA area, and then flew out to a jet here on the Big Island, healing as many of those forests as I could that were all burned out. Those are all mirrors. When you plug this into Galactic Talk, talking about with what's his name, Decode, talking about we're moving into a cooling period, what they call solar minimum and all that. And so he was talking about carbon dioxide and, carbon exchange, oxygen, the way that living organisms breathe. Remember I mentioned before, 21% oxygen, which is 3, H2 plus 1 equals 3. Reduce the oxygen content. That means that the bioplasma, that means that the engine of the planet, all the cellular organisms run on bioplasma, are going to begin slowing down, which means the planetary immune system is going to begin to slow down, right? So now it's going to go in the cold to hold its energy, preserve its energy, which is like, going into like hibernation, right? And so you can see why that is, because on the other side of that, it means that as the oxygen content goes down, it's going to be a less livable place for those that run on high oxygen, right? Electric potential of hydrogen, high alkaline, right? As a result of what happened here, right? The damage that was done. So it's a salvage mission. So, they took a wrecking ball to the place. That's that's just another way that I describe it. So I've been looking at all these fatalities and injuries that have occurred since I left. Okay. Now, the reason that that's significant is because of knowing the future. This is when you get back into the predictive programming, because your machines are easy to predict. Okay. When you are on fire and you are what love is, you're outside that. You're outside the time stream. Okay. So you're not simulating nothing. So what that means is the way that the math works is it's pretty easy to predict what's going to happen in the future by the things that they do now to make them happen, which are actually programmed to happen. Right. So in other words, they're knowns. That's what, what's his name, that defense secretary, under Bush, the little kid Bush, right? There are knowns and unknown knowns, right? Now we're back to the AI and what it knows, what it becomes aware of. And so when I was in 1972 and 73 and 74 with U.S. Forest Service, I worked on hotshot crews, worked with jumpers, worked with hill attack, and worked with command authority that worked in what would be considered, because the amount of fires that Southern California is always having, right? You end up running across some of the most highly qualified, what are known as fire teams, which are basically, it's run no different than any military operation. That's why it's known as paramilitary. If you look at the structure of the organization, the command authority, and then you break all the functions down, it's no different than breaking it all down for a supercomputer. Machinery. Rule-based function. Everybody's got a function. Everybody gets trained. Everybody's programmed in order to carry out what it is they've been ordered to do, right? That follows a very strict set of sequences, much like the same way you pull up to a hydrant, make your connections between the source of the water and put it in the tank, pull out the lines, and now you have an orderly way in which you're going to manage that particular incident, right? So I went through all the different ways in which you could go from working in medics and structural fire and all of that in order to be the mother and father as one, to protect all these guys that are going out here to put their lives at risk to do this stuff. And the reason that is important, and Native Indians who were the first hotshots that went to work for the U.S. Forest Service as line cutting crews, when you're a living spirit and you're native, you have a living spiritual relationship with Mother Earth and all the elementals and all the spirits of the wind and the spirit of fire. And I know that because I've been out there on the fire line with Indians, Luyazi, that Navajo. You're not going to get burned up with a Native Indian out on a fire. Not with Mama Earth, you're not. Okay? And the reason for that, you have higher situational awareness. Means we know what's going on. Spirits communicating with spirits. Because I'm a big spirit of fire. right? So we have spiritual communication with spirits, spirit of fire. In our native land, in a native realm, we communicate with all the spirits, all the elementals to bring us rain when we need, right? We have a relationship with all the spirits. We communicate with each other so that we're all thriving. You see how that works? Big diff. So what you notice over time is that there was very few people that ever got killed on the fire line back when I was doing it, for the years that I was doing it, and even before that, because I looked at the whole history. I went back to look at the record of looking at all the fatalities and how people got injured, why they got injured, okay, who was making decisions, who was making the command decisions. Now we go back to the stuff I've talked about when I'm in the middle of a military hierarchy, and I have the highest state of awareness because I am what love is, which means I'm aware of what's going to happen if you want to do what you got to do. Okay, so this is what we call pulling rank. Pull your stripes off, pull your bars off. Because you know that when you are what love is, coming in with a single pole, with a Godspeed vibration, you're the highest law. That means I have the highest state of awareness, which is there to try and protect you because I love all of you. I don't want to lose any one of you. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. That's a mother and a father. Doesn't want their children to get hurt because you realize that you have a higher state of awareness than they do. That's the truth of it. That's why love is protection, because love loves you. Doesn't want to think you get hurt, because otherwise I'm going to experience what happened to you. Now I'm going to have to heal you to bring my universe back, which is what love is. You see how it just automatically works that way? So I've gone back to look at these and realized that, and I knew this back in 50 years ago, because you could see the writing on the wall. They started laxing the standards. The first thing they did, what they used to do was, anytime there was ever a fire, blow your first out, knock it down, get it as fast as you can, right? Then you realize a document comes out with the U.S. military is now wanting to task U.S. Forest Service Agent Smiths to use forest fires as a weapon against humanity with souls. So you know who's running that. They're AI military. That's right. Burning down all the mirrors, the breathers. So they had no way to know that, did they? And so what you begin to see over time, because I looked at the record, go take a look at the table records, and you realize that as the training standards went lower, right? Even though they keep saying everything's all about safety, what they did is they went to what's known as an incident command system, the same way they're trying to get everybody on the reservation. Command and control under the AI. Everybody's under the control. Everything is under the control. The world of things. Remember the Internet of Things? So I could see this being built in 1970, and it shouldn't be coincidence why I'm there. You see, it's building a network, right? They're building a network to plug in all the machines, right? And so what you began to see over time was more and more of the machines, the programmed ones, okay, their situational awareness is not as high, right? So in other words, the incremental rise of machines, okay, and loss of soul fractals. In other words, there was a corresponding mathematical ratio in the loss of one versus the gain in the other. See what I'm saying? And that's measured in torque speed differential between one and the other. Okay, you see how that works? So as more of those units came in to the ranks of law enforcement, firefighting, wildland firefighting, structural firefighting, right? It began to start seeing an increase. They started coming in, the money starts to go up. Now, if the money starts to go up, hey, now now it's a different scene, right? And now what you begin to realize is over time, and the records reflect that, more and more guys are getting killed. More air tankers are going down. More helicopters are crashing. More firefighters are being burned on the fire line. Go look at the record. Okay? So again, we're back to Mr. Smiths, which is what I've said since I was 4 years of age. They don't know what they're doing. That's what makes them planet killers. Just survey the damage. Survey the spiritual battlefield, right? So it's always hard sometimes when I realize letting this out in sort of a public way because it is the truth. That's how we learn to each other why we're here, right? And because that's of all the things that I've ever done here in terms of using my energy to do it